Hello, my name is Malcolm Brubaker, and I will be your instructor for this Ohio School of Ministry course on eschatology. In this first of 4 videos, I will introduce myself, talk a little bit about the bibliography, and some of the remaining 3 videos to follow this one. First of all, let me say a few words about myself. I am a emeritus professor and adjunct professor at University of Valley Forge in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. I have taught there since 1983, retired full-time in 2016. But more importantly for Ohio, I am a longtime fan and was raised in Ohio, namely Warren, Ohio, where First Assembly of God Church is my home church in terms of being brought up. I went to Evangel College, now university. From then I went on to get 2 masters, first at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, and got my master's of divinity. Then later, as I began teaching here at the University of Valley Forge, I earned my master's of theology in Old Testament, which I taught from most of the time I was at Valley Forge full time. And then I concluded my career with a PhD in renewal studies at Regent University. So that's a little bit about myself. A little bit what will happen next. I want to say a few words about the bibliography, and then we'll talk about the following videos. The second video will deal with a little bit of the background, why in the Assemblies of God are there so many doctrinal statements and our fundamental truths, the last 4 which deal with eschatology. And then we will talk about a so-called white paper on eschatology developed by the Assemblies of God presbyters, and we'll look at that in another video. And then we'll look at a teaching I call the forward lean, and this will give us a more broad picture from a biblical point of view of the nature of the Bible's forward cast from Genesis all the way to Revelation. That eschatology is not just about purely the last things, but it's actually an orientation of the whole Bible. So that's a little bit where we're going to go in the so-called hour of teaching that we're going to have for you. And now a few words about the bibliography. You'll find these resources on the course website, and hopefully you'll be able to track along. We'll say more words about that, but you can go ahead and open up, if you wish, the file. There's a Word document file on bibliography, and you can open that. But at the very top of that document are just some of my favorite resources when I turn to study and probe the matters of eschatology. Of course, you are now well familiar with our main textbook by Stanley Horton, Our Destiny, and it is a stock standard Pentecostal perspective historically of where we have been teaching, and most of our fundamental truths can be found here in our textbook. I also mention a work by Millard Erickson. Erickson's book, Contemporary Options in Eschatology, is an older work, but he kind of goes through some of the major positions that people take that are still within the evangelical camp. There's a work also by Joel Green, How to Read a Prophecy. Again, it's a bit of a dated work, but it's very readable, University Press, and it's just some cautious, practical, common sense ideas of how we should read our Bible in terms of prophecy. A newer work by Richard Middleton, A New Heaven and a New Earth, Reclaiming Biblical Eschatology, is just a more thorough, you can see it's fairly good size scholarly work. But basically what he wants to revisit is the idea of eternity. Are we going to be on a cloud playing harps, or just, what is it that we will be doing in heaven to come? So I think you'll find this an encouraging idea of the new heavens and the new earth. There's a work that I do have on the list called Doomsday Delusions, and this is going to be very similar to the next work by Pate, which I don't have. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. This is the one by Pate. And Doomsday Delusions, again, is a sort of looking back at all the mistakes Christians have made, certainly in recent years, of what has gone wrong in people's false ideas of eschatology. For instance, a well-known one, I have this little booklet called 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Will Be in 1988. Well, that's, years and years ago now, and still hasn't happened. So that's a good example of speculative, wrong-headed attempts to explain eschatology. There's a work that I don't have on the list there. I'll just go next to Brent Sandy. This is a hermeneutical, interpretive textbook that deals with, again, broad principles of how to interpret Scripture's prophecies. I strongly encourage those who want to follow proper hermeneutical principles and understand what is biblical eschatology all about. I strongly recommend this. It's fairly well read and written. I think you can digest it without too much advanced studies in this area. So I recommend that by Brent Sandy. There's a work that I don't have to show you, the one by Sutton on that list, American Apocalypse, A History of Modern Evangelicalism. And basically what that work is an idea that very much to the core of evangelical, including Pentecostals, is the idea of the expectations of Christ's return and how that affected our own American culture and Pentecostal culture. So take a look at that sometime. It's another recent work, maybe more of an historical study than anything else, but something that gives you a little broad background to that. We'll kind of touch upon that a little bit in our teaching on eschatology and ecclesiology later on in a later video. The last work, Amos Young. Amos is Symbols of God scholar of highest repute. He is kind of like one of those theological explorers. He's on the cutting edge of thinking. Sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't. But in this book, he does have a substantial chapter that deals with matters of prophecy and eschatology. So again, maybe a little bit on the tougher side of reading, but it's and maybe a pricey volume. I think I got this one as a complimentary copy. But anyway, anything by Amos Young is worthy reading, maybe carefully and slowly, but Amos Young will certainly challenge your thinking. So there's a big list of other books that follow my own preference list, and you can peruse that, and there, of course, is many works in that list that will provide a very good quality series of work. So hopefully that gets us started and rolling. We will now end the first video of 4.